Hello, brothers and sisters. This is Cheyenne, loving warrior for Christ, and I'm a watchman on the wall, and I'm also known as Lulu Cheyenne off Facebook. What I'd like to talk about is Donald Trump and how he's deceiving this whole world. You know, the Bible does say that the Antichrist will deceive the whole world. I'm not saying that Donald Trump is the Antichrist, but he should be on your watch list, along with Obama. You know, because we never know who it could be. I mean, it could be an alien, and they could be, working to bring in the New World Order for an alien. But the point is that Donald Trump is working alongside with the secret societies, the New World Order, the Illuminati, Freemasons. But they're not seeing it, and they think that he's against the New World Order and all that. But Donald Trump said with his own mouth that he's a nationalist and a globalist, and I do have a video to support this. When I try to show these people who want to argue and fuss about my stance on Donald Trump, they say they watch the videos that I send to them to show them the proof, but more than likely they don't even take the time out to look at the videos that I'm sending to them. And it could be something that Donald Trump had said with his own mouth, and they still for some reason want to call it false whenever he said it with his own mouth, which doesn't make any sense to me, because you see Donald Trump sitting there talking, and it's coming right out of his own mouth. But I've noticed that unless it goes along with what they agree, what they believe or what they agree with, then they won't even look at it. They won't take the time to do any research or anything. They think Donald Trump is making America great again, which I cannot find any scriptures in the Bible that says that America will be great again, during the end times, because we are living in the end times. And but these people seem to think that Donald Trump's going to make the world great again, or America great again, or something like that. And I have to say that it's false. He's not going to make anything great again. What's going on is that people are putting their trust in a man, and they're not putting their trust in the Lord Jesus Christ. And when you do that, you will find yourself in judgment, because you're supposed to put your trust and faith in Jesus Christ, not in a man. Then I have some Christians who try to tell me that I need to get off the Donald Trump wagon, stop talking about that and just talk about Jesus, which I do make videos about Jesus too, But this is also very important. We're supposed to sound the alarm when we see something coming, so that way people aren't taken in their sins, so that way they don't fall for the deceptions. I mean, I know that not everyone's going to wake up, and there's going to be few people that fall for the deceptions, no matter if you sound the alarm and they hear it, they're just not going to wake up. But I'm going to do my best to try and help as many people as I possibly can while I'm still here on this earth. Well, I hope I reach as many people as I possibly can, because there's so many people that are in deceptions right now. They really do think that Donald Trump's going to make America great again, and I seriously cannot find any scripture in the Bible that supports that ideal, because we are still living in the end times. All you have to do is take a real good look around and do some research, and you can discover it for yourself that we are still living in the end times. And these people that are in this deception, they are attacking like people's YouTube channels or their Facebook channels that are trying to expose Donald Trump. They get really upset and frustrated with people like me for making videos or any comments. I try my hardest to try to help them become aware of what's going on, but they don't read any of my comments. And I have a comment here that I wrote, that I sent to them, and I'd like to read it here. Trump was selected as president, not elected. Many people think that Trump was elected and that we had a choice, but we really don't have a choice. Every president has been selected by the elites. The Simpsons and the Illuminati card deck looked this up, predicted Donald Trump would win before he was even a thought in the American people's minds. The Simpsons have an episode of Trump being the president and has an episode of Trump lying in the coffin, so basically predicting his death too. Okay, I know that the Simpsons are not, like a credible whatever news thing or whatever, but the point here isn't about that. The point is that they were showing something that was going to happen in the future that they shouldn't even had any clue that was going to happen. So how would they have known? You know what I mean? How would they have known? That's the point that I'm trying to get across. How would these people know that Donald Trump would be the president of the United States and put it inside their cartoon? Okay. Not only did the Illuminati card deck and The Simpsons predict Donald Trump would be president of the United States, but also Back to the Future Part 2 predicted Donald Trump as president in 1989. This was done before he was even a thought. The secret governments are Freemasons, Skull and Bones, Bohemian Grove, Bilderberg Group. The Illuminati is a name given to them all, but there are more groups that I didn't list. The secret societies of the Illuminati rule the government and control who the president will be. They choose who the president will be. And they control the president. The president is just a puppet. The world would like you to believe that Donald Trump is hated by everyone, and it would appear to be true. But the key word here, appears to be true, meaning not necessarily true. Donald Trump was well liked by many Hollywood stars before he became the president. He was a big shot that got to act in movies using his own name, not a stage name like most famous actors. I wonder why they were using his name like he was something so special. Why? And this was before he was the president. He's not the only wealthy man in the world, you know. Trump was in some movies and TV shows like Home Alone, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, The Nanny, just to name a few. There is a secret agenda here. It's difficult to see unless you're paying close attention. Since George Bush Sr. was in office, the goals were to bring in the New World Order. This plan has been something the secret societies of the Illuminati have been working on for many, many years. They finally getting all their ducks in a row, and after George Bush Sr., all presidents have been working towards the same agenda, but going at it in different ways. It didn't matter if they were Republican or Democrat. They were all doing something to further their New World Order agenda one way or another. There's so many objectives that they have to do that way. They have given each of the puppet presidents a list of goals they must achieve before their term is up. They have invested a lot of time and money into their plan. They are not willing to let this plan go down the tubes. They also know that people will not be willing to accept the New World Order plan. So they are working to make this plan more desirable through manipulation and brainwash. They use the media, Hollywood stars, and anything they can to deceive people into accepting this New World Order plan. So this is why they will introduce it to the world as a beautiful gift with beautiful wrapping and a big bow with the words peace and security written all over it. There is a real plan to bring in the New World Order and a one world leader that the Bible calls the Antichrist. This Antichrist will cause all to receive his mark, the mark of the beast, in their hand, arm, or the forehead. You will not be able to buy or sell without this mark. I find it highly suspicious that Donald Trump's son-in-law owns the building 666 on Fifth Avenue that manufactures the RFID implant, the mark of the beast 666. This right here should be a red flag for all Christians, and I don't know why it's not. If you are hearing this, then you need to wake up and do some research on your own and find out the truth and stop following after this man. Not only that, Trump picked up where Obama left off and is trying to make a peace deal with Israel and divide the land of Israel, Jerusalem. This will make God very angry. No one is to divide Israel, God's promised land. So, when they do, God's judgment and wrath will be poured out upon them. All the countries that are doing this to Israel will be under judgment. If Trump was a true Christian, then he would know what the end-time Bible prophecies are and what they say, and not go against God. The Bible tells us that the Antichrist makes the peace deal with Israel. Not saying that Trump is the Antichrist or the New World Order one world leader, but he's sure helping with their plans, something to be watching out for. Also, Trump does a lot of the Illuminati hand signals or signs. His favorite, it seems, is 666. Almost all past puppet presidents made the same hand signs, and so does Hollywood stars. Hollywood stars even say they sold their soul to Satan and make those hand signs. It says in the Bible that during the end times, a big delusion will affect the people. This could be it. So-called Christians and lukewarm Christians thinking that Trump is anointed and Cyrus and of God. This is very dangerous. They pretty much worshiping Donald Trump. Instead of putting their faith in God, they put their faith in a man. They think that since Trump put an end to funding abortion, that this is good enough. Since their tax dollars does not fund abortion, that this is good enough to clear their conscience. Well, the main and major thing that God wants is for abortions to be stopped completely, not just the funding. So if you are one of these Christians who are content with the ideal that he stopped the funding part of it, but give no thought to the fact that they are still killing and having abortions and killing innocent babies, then maybe your heart isn't right with God. Also, California just passed a law to ban Bibles in their state, and I thought Trump was supposed to make America great again. You see, he can't. God's plan is still going as he says outlined in his Bible. I put my faith in the Bible and what it says will happen during the end times. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that Babylon, America, would be great again. It says that in 1 hour, Babylon, America, will fall. God's judgment will be poured out on this land and for all the sins and the conditions of people's hearts, the pride, lust, money, murder, hate, just to name some of the conditions. Instead of putting their trust and faith in repenting and turning to Jesus, they put their trust and faith in a man, a president, Donald Trump. This is a test from God to see where your loyalty and your heart is with him. Are you going to pass this test and put Jesus first and only trust in Jesus and Jesus to do his will? The Bible is very accurate, and it says that during the end times there will be wars and rumors of wars. There will be pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. We have a rise of different kinds of diseases, food shortages, an increase in earthquakes, sinkholes. Sinkholes are popping up all over the world. Bodies of water are turning blood red. Mass animal die-offs worldwide. Strange sounds heard in the skies worldwide. An increase in seeing UFOs, aliens, which are the fallen angels, bad ones that follow Lucifer, or the good ones, the ones that follow after God's will. So we don't know which ones they are, but we see in a whole bunch of UFOs and aliens. You know, they're the bad aliens. You know those because they look evil. They look like little demons with black eyes. Let's see. Increase in ghost activity, which are demons. The homosexual movement. Now homosexuals can get married. Gender confusion. They don't know if they are a boy or a girl or something else. You know, some people don't even know if they're a human. They think they might be a dog. The transgender movement are all signs of the end times. No man can save you from the end times. What is written in God's word, judgment is coming to this land. Our time is short, and we all need to repent and turn to God. Open your eyes, people. There's a big game being played on everyone. It's like a movie where everyone knows their role, character that they have to act out. They make sure to play their part very convincing to make sure that you think it's all real. They have to make it look like as if there's a right wing and a left wing, when in reality there isn't, because no matter, both sides are working for the same boss. Right wing, left wing, but both from the same bird, working towards the same agenda but going at it in different ways. This is why the left has been attacking Donald Trump so hard, so that people would be blinded by this deception. That way people stay asleep and think that he is not part of the left, when he is part of both the left and the right. This is part of their plan, to get people to fuss and fight against one another. Also using the bullying card to gain sympathy for Donald Trump. The people to fight to defend him. The secret societies of the Illuminati have studied human behaviors for years and know how to manipulate people into reacting the way that they would want. So far it's been working with a lot of people. Wake up and don't fall for this delusion. Donald Trump is working on bringing in the one world religion alongside with the Roman Catholic Church. Research it. The Roman Catholic Church is corrupt. They say that all roads lead to heaven, no matter what God you worship, and we know that is a lie. Pope Francis said that Jesus didn't die on the cross, but passed out and was a failure. Research it. Pope Francis and Donald Trump are both working towards a one world religion, which is part of the New World Order. Not only is the one world religion going to rake in all religions into one, no matter if it's monk, Buddhist, Christians, they're all going to, come together under the disguise of peace. But this new world religion under the Roman Catholic Church is also going to have the LBGTQ, which is the lesbian, bisexual, gay, transgender, queer organization. They're going to be part of this New World Order, one world religion. And their theme is going to be all about equality. If you pay attention, you'll hear that a lot, equality. Okay, and this also goes for the New Age movement. So, yes, Donald Trump is working towards that with the New World Order, one world religion, with Donald Trump helping Pope Francis with this New World Order religion. The goals of this New World Order, one world religion, is to abolish all Christian traditional religion and belief in Jesus as our salvation, in order to replace it with a one world religion based on the occult of men, saying it's for peace and equality of all humans, a joining of all pagan religions and Christianity and all others all together, uniting together under peace, saying everyone can make it into heaven no matter if they believe or not in God, or if they are homosexuals. The Pope has already said that it don't matter what God you worship, because they all worship the same God, which is a big fat lie. President Donald Trump is supposed to appear to be a Christian to help bring in this one world religion, to rake in as many Christians as he possibly can to fall for this one world religion. Are you going to be one of them? I hope not. I hope you open your eyes and see the truth before it's too late. Remember, Lucifer presents himself as an angel of light when we know he's not, and is the master of deception and a big liar. So keep that in mind. Just be careful and be aware things may not be as you think. And God bless you. And that was the end of my note that I share with people off Facebook. And I just wanted to share it with y'all. And one more thing, I wanted to add this. Since Facebook and YouTube has gone on an attack on Christians and people who are out speaking the truth, I think it might be a great idea if everyone learned how to download videos download someone's video that they put up to your computer and upload it on your channel. I'm sure that there might be some that may not want you to, but you can ask them permission. But mostly all Christians don't mind you using their videos as long as you're using it in the same light as they presenting their video, and give them credit to their video, because nowadays, videos are getting taken down left and right. And if you take the video and change the title a little bit and add it to YouTube, then that video is still up there somewhere, if you get my meaning. Well, anyways, I added some videos, and I want to say thank you to the people who created these videos. They did an awesome and great job on them, and I just wanted to give y'all further proof of what I'm trying to say, and I hope it helps someone, because it really is important. And if you could please share this video with everyone, and like and comment, and thank you very much, and God bless you. All right, bye.
Right now, Christians are professing that prophecy is in the making, as an Israeli organization has started to mint coinage, which displays a 70-year fulfillment of Israel. It represents the gathering of Israel together again, giving all glory to Trump's image, which is in front of King Cyrus on the front of the coin, and a rebuilt third temple on the back. The coin itself, paired with the current geopolitical state of affairs, is shocking, as it indeed represents that we are on the verge of a cataclysmic period in time, known as the end times. However, one specific aspect of this coin caught my attention. That is, the image of Donald Trump on the front, paired with the symbol of peace, a dove, on the back. It reminded me that before Donald Trump was elected president, he was referred to as Donald the Dove. Why is that? Well, back in 1983, a well-known photographer named William Coupon had photographed him with a dove when he was at the pinnacle of his career. But what did Donald Trump have to do with a dove that would warrant this picture? While it's difficult to find, William Coupon is on record, at least twice, stating that the photo shoot was for a Manhattan Inc. magazine edition. He states on Time.com, quote, "I shot Donald Trump twice. This is my favorite." Trump was offering his services as a peace negotiator between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Later on Tao Style, he writes, he, Donald Trump, was 32 years old when I took that photograph in 1983. He was attempting to, independently, negotiate an agreement between the Israelis and Palestinians at that time. So when the news first broke in the Trump presidency that he would try to attempt Middle East peace, it took many by surprise. Many thought that this was Trump being flamboyant, that he would, even recklessly, display how he is the chief negotiator by trying to tackle Middle East peace. However, many do not realize that this has been on Trump's mind for a very, very long time. Over 35 years, to be exact. While many think that Trump happened to grab the presidency by happenstance, just due to a cascade of events in the geopolitical sphere, many peculiar things tell us otherwise. For one, there has been some predictive programming of a Trump presidency via cartoons, as with the Simpsons episode in 2000 called Bart to the Future, or this eerily accurate heavy metal cartoon called The Wall by Peter Cooper from July 1990, which even foretells of a Trump wall. But even more disturbing is Trump's direct integration with the White House back in the early 1980s, which relates back to the photo of the dove I showed before. The photo was used in this Manhattan Inc. magazine edition entitled Donald Trump's Ultimate Deal. In this magazine, Donald tells us how he can solve nuclear arms proliferation across the world. What's shocking about this article, as I mentioned prior, is that Trump states that he has been in close talks with the White House ever since the early 80s, as well as his plan with which he would disarm the world. In referencing to his intertwining with the White House, he states, "I'm dealing at a very high level on this," he said, with people in Washington, in the White House. There was too much at stake for him to risk the wrong kind of exposure on the subject being nuclear proliferation. In summary, he states, referring to the rest of the world outside US and Russia, most of those pre-nuclear countries are in one form or another dominated by the US and Soviet Union. Between those two nations, you have the power to dominate any of those other countries. So we should use our power of economic retaliation, and they use their powers of retaliation, and between the two of us, we will prevent the problem from happening. So Trump's solution is a partnership with Russia to subdue other countries from obtaining nuclear arms. Other than teaming up with Russia, what were his specific plans? Well, he states, again, referring to the other countries, maybe we should offer them something. I'm saying you start off nicely as possible. You apply as much pressure as necessary until you achieve the goal. You start off telling them, let's get rid of it. If that doesn't work, you start cutting off aid, and then more. You do whatever is necessary so these people will have riots in the street, so they can't get water, so they can't get band-aids, so they can't get food, because that's the only thing that's going to do it. The people, the riots. Trump is so bold in this interview that he even declares sanctions against allies like France, since they have the nuclear bomb. He states they've got the bomb, but they don't have it now with the delivery capability they will have in 5 years. If they don't give it up, and I don't mean reduce it, and I don't mean stop, because stopping doesn't mean anything. I mean get it out. If they didn't, I would bring sanctions against that country that would be so strong, so unbelievable." End quote. So these are the thoughts of Donald Trump 35 years ago, that he was already entwined in the White House, that he was already attempting Middle East peace, and that, at least in reference to nuclear disarmament, he is prepared to work with Russia to subdue the rest of the world into riots by massive sanctions and other means. Well, isn't it interesting then that 35 years ago from these statements, Donald Trump is pursuing Middle East peace, that he is being investigated for a variety of collusions with Russians, and also publicly states that the two should moderate the Israeli-Palestinian peace, that just as he was prepared to bring massive sanctions on France 35 years ago, that he states today he will sanction European allies if they continue to deal with Iran in the nuclear Iran deal. So it seems to me that 1, Trump and perhaps the elites have been grooming Trump for this event for nearly 4 decades. And 2, his thoughts of the past seem to be reflective of what he is actively doing right now. Now, I find it humorous that most will say I'm a Hillary-loving liberal because of my stance on Donald Trump. That could be farther from the truth. The reality is, I'm a conservative Christian who has discernment on people's character as well as biblical prophecy. I understand that this Trump presidency is hardly by mistake or chance odds, and that all the focus on Trump, Russia, and the United States seems to have originated from a plan Trump had nearly 4 decades ago. While it seems Russia and the United States are headed steadily into war, could this be Hegelian dialectic? Could the two, in reality, just be working for the same common beast system goals, but from opposite ends of the spectrum? I'll let you decide. But you have to admit, the parallelisms between then and now are pretty stunning. This is Mike with On Point Preparedness. Hope you like this. Please do subscribe and like. God bless.
April 27, 2017, Donald Trump told the Wall Street Journal, "I'm a nationalist and a globalist. I'm both." This statement contrasts entirely with an anti-globalism statement Trump made a year before, when he said, "We will no longer surrender this country or its people to the false song of globalism." Why is Trump reversing his position and now saying he's a globalist? How can you be both a nationalist and a globalist at the same time? Here's that clip.
The same. We will no longer surrender this country or its people to the false song of globalism.
Trump's anti-globalism sentiment is what caused many libertarian-leaning voters, like myself, to vote for him. Is Trump just another warmongering globalist puppet? Or is he the frontman for another faction of the globalist power structure who is fighting for control of the world government? We know that Trump has hired many Goldman Sachs executives and other bankers. We also know that Trump hired Wilbur Ross as the Secretary of Commerce. Wilbur Ross, according to this Forbes article, used to head a Rothschild's bankruptcy advisory business, where he represented investors in Trump's failing Taj Mahal casino in the early 1990s. Ross and Carl Icahn convinced bondholders to strike a deal with Trump, who some investors wanted to push out, which allowed Trump to retain control of the property. So a Rothschild's bank, headed by Wilbur Ross, bailed out Trump and allowed him to retain control of his casino. So in a sense, Trump is indebted to the Rothschilds. Bringing in a crew of globalist bankers into your administration is not draining the swamp. It seems that the Rothschilds' globalist banker faction is supporting Trump to overthrow the current liberal New World Order. My hypothesis is that this Rothschilds faction wants to allow Americans to have a little bit of prosperity and economy with low taxes and a little bit of freedom, while they also sit on top and control the might of the US military to accomplish their foreign nation-building goals. This contrasts with the current New World Order control model of sucking out all of the wealth and energy out of the West and shipping it to slave China and India. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments.
Ever since the very beginnings of Donald Trump's candidacy, a lot of people have wondered if Trump is involved in any secret orders, or esoteric groups, or the Illuminati. And during his campaign, Newt Gingrich said on Fox News that the elite do not want Donald Trump because he's not part of the club and has not gone through the initiation rites. He doesn't belong to the secret society. Newt Gingrich said that on Fox News, but does that make it true? Gingrich is a 33-degree Mason, and Freemasons are encouraged to lie when it comes to their rhetoric. And Albert Pike, the cleric of Freemasonry, admitted this in his book, Morals and Dogma. Masonry, like all religions, all the mysteries, Hermeticism, and alchemy, conceals its secrets from all except the adepts and sages, or the elect, and uses false explanations and misinterpretations of its symbols to mislead those who deserve only to be misled, to conceal the truth, which it calls light, from them, and to draw them away from it. Truth is not for those who are unworthy or unable to receive it, or would pervert it. And he said that in his book, Morals and Dogma. So by his own words, Freemasons purposely hide, they purposely deceive, they purposely lie, they purposely misdirect, because they believe that those who are not their members deserve to be misled. So if Newt Gingrich said that Donald Trump's not a member, and Newt Gingrich is a 33-degree Mason, is it true what he said? This is what we have to look at. And if we are in the end times right now, we can expect that there's going to be deception, because the Bible tells us the great delusion would come. So while this great delusion is pounding the shores of the land, that would mean that in order to survive as a follower of Jesus, it's going to take discernment and examining the facts. And in this video, I'm going to present 3 exhibits that will show evidence that Donald J. Trump is a member of the Freemasons or a dark society. So now let's look at Exhibit A. Donald Trump has an odd way of posing and sitting. He seems to favor putting his thumb and fingertips together and pointing his hand downwards. And as we look at the hand gesture, it appears to be making an inverted pyramid. He's always doing this. So the question is why? And of course, to show intellectual honesty, we must also include that maybe it's just a habit. Perhaps his fingertips are normally attracted to each other and he can't help it. If that's the case, it's a subconscious thing, maybe. Or is it deliberate? It is one of the Freemasonry signs. And as we look at the images, they look deliberate. I wondered if he's commanded to do it. Like, if he stops, will someone be unhappy? Or what if he's doing it to earn something? Now, we're going to talk about that in a moment. But these gestures appear to be making the inverted pyramid. But what does that mean? What is the inverted pyramid? Well, to explain it, we're going to look at a quick background of the Freemasonry symbol, the inverted pyramid. Try to get a hold of what I'm about to share in the following primer because it's going to help explain where I am going with this. And also, if you may be a born-again Christian and you love Jesus, I want you to know that these symbols that I'm going to show you can do you no harm. Now, the inverted pyramid is a symbol that's used by Freemasons, members of the occult, Satanists, New Agers, pagans, and many others who practice esoteric mysticism and dark arts. Its origin is found in the ancient fertility cult of Babylon. It goes all the way back to the beginning of time when Satan was deceiving the earth at the very beginning. He wanted to come up with a counterfeit to draw people away from the truth of Elohim, of Yahweh. So he came up with his counterfeits to try to replace. And then he also included with the counterfeits the doctrine of his false religion. And he purposely appealed to the carnality of man. His original false counterfeit religion included lust and carnality and promiscuity and adultery and fornication. When the children of Israel migrated into the Promised Land, they were exposed to the fertility cult in the land of Canaan where Baal and Asherah were worshipped. A lot of Christians don't know this, but Baal worship is a sexual religion at its core. Many modern Christians erroneously think that the main attraction of Baal worship was bowing down to idols and statues, but the real attraction was the sexual activity that went along with Baal worship. Because during their rituals, it was common for orgies to break out to please their fertility god. And through the centuries, mankind has never changed. Today, the residents of Earth also take part in ritualistic fornication under the guise of pagan fertility rituals, especially in America. Can America be great if these things are taking place on our shores? If Burning Man is taking place on our shores, can America be great? Now, Burning Man is not just a small gathering of a few Earth worshippers. It's an annual event where tens of thousands of people meet in the desert to have an orgy. Baal worship is everywhere. And let us not forget spring break. It's become one of the cultural staples of America's young people as they make their passage into adulthood. This occurs every year by the millions. What does this have to do with the upside-down pyramid? What I'm establishing is that the upside-down pyramid, the inverted pyramid, is sexual. And in this world that denies God, the main attraction of being a human is sexual deviancy and carnality. It's always been about the sexual temptations of man. And as I just mentioned, the children of Israel were confronted with the temptation of fertility worship when they entered the Promised Land and were introduced to Baal and Asherah. Now, God told them to tear down the altars, But unfortunately, they did not, and the corruption spread into their camp. And Baal was made the male deity of the cult, and Asherah was the female. And over time, Satan spread the fertility cult throughout the world. And the original names of the deities evolved into other names as they polluted planet Earth. Asherah goes by several names, including the geographical region where she is worshipped, but Asherah goes by Astarte, Ashtoreth, Astargatis, Athiarat, Venus, Isis, Juno, Ishtar, the Queen of Heaven, Aphrodite, Hadad, and many other names. Right here we see an idol of Asherah from an antiquities dig. We see horns on top of her head. Those horns were symbolic of mountain peaks. As archaeologists have made discoveries, they have found stone carvings of the goddess Asherah. We can see right here the inverted triangle of Asherah represents the female anatomy. And as you can see, the inverted triangle was part of Asherah's renderings and represented the female portion of human anatomy, while Baal represented the male anatomy with the use of pillars and poles. And over time, Baal's name morphed into other names, but the basics remained the same. Fertility worship took place in temples utilizing phallic symbols, obelisks, maypoles, and pillars. And today these practices continue in pagan religions, cults, New Age ceremonies, and secret orders throughout the world. Now, how important is the inverted triangle to the occult? Well, let's take a look at this. The symbol is extolled by Satanists. This is Lucifer's symbol. The upside down triangle is revered and used in many occult rituals. Right here is an image taken from an early 1900s book of their practice. Now in this one, you can see that this ritualistic talisman utilizes both the upright and the inverted triangle. And then we have another one here. So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, the inverted triangle has special meaning to those who are allied with the underworld. Now, if you're wondering, what does this have to do with Freemasonry? The answer is dualism. Dualism is the belief that opposites in the universe work together for balance and compatibility. It's a belief that the forces of good and evil need each other, which to them minimizes God and elevates Satan as being equals, because they believe that God and Satan are equals who depend on each other for the universe to function. And as a result, there's no such thing as right and wrong. It's only balance. Now, Freemasons believe that when an initiate of their craft gains a full understanding of dualism, then they will reach illumination. And they have many symbols for dualism, including the tiled floor in many of their lodges. And this is to show the opposites that together work for balance. And dualism is also represented in the very popular Freemasonry symbol of the square and the compass. A lot of regular folks don't know what this means. In fact, a lot of them are told it represents God, the great architect, because a G is inside of the compass and the square. And as you can see, looking at this image, the compass is pointing up for the upright pyramid, and that represents the male. And then you have the square below it. It represents the inverted triangle. The novice initiate of Freemasonry is taught that this symbol represents God, the great architect. But as we read earlier, Freemasonry purposely deceives those who do not understand. And in reality, the meaning of the square and the compass is sexual. The following excerpt explains it, and this was admitted by former 33-degree Mason James D. Shaw, who gave an explanation, as it is known, to Royal Arch initiates. This is what he said about the square and the compass. The real meaning of these great lights is sexual. The square represents the female generative principle, which includes the earth and the base things, sensual nature, while the compass represents the male, the active generative principle, the things above, the sun, the heavens, and the higher spiritual nature. And when the compass is arranged above the square, it symbolizes that the male sun is impregnating the earth with life-producing rays. And he went on to say the true meaning of the square and the compass are twofold. The earthly human representations are of the man and his phallus, and also the woman with her female reproductive organs. And the cosmic meaning is that of the active sun, which is in truth a deity, the sun god, from above, imparting life into the passive earth, the earth fertility goddess, who is below and producing new life. Now, folks, try to get a hold of this, because this principle is utilized by all of those who worship their false gods. It includes the New Age. It includes Indian Hinduism. It includes the religion of the pagans and the Druids, the Luciferians, the Illuminati. So dualism to them means God and Satan are equals, or right and wrong are the same. And as a result, there is no such thing as sin. There is no such thing as breaking God's commandments, because there are no commandments. Doing what the human soul wills to do is the sum of their law. The dark practice of Satanism also relies on dualism. And one of the mottos of their renowned goat statue, the Baphomet, reveals it, because it points up and down, and that's the motto of the Baphomet: as above, so below. The Baphomet is also a transgender. It's neither male nor female. And the symbol of the Baphomet features the sun above and the dark moon below, black and white. So Satanism also depends on contrast. I mentioned all of that, ladies and gentlemen, so that we can move forward to now look at the evidence. When members of the occult practice their rituals, their motive is to gain and receive strength and riches and prosperity from their deities. They do it in exchange for temporary fame and riches and achievement. Many entertainers have done this. Politicians have done this. This is what Bohemian Grove is all about. They do this for power. In order to gain their power, they have to submit their loyalty to their deities. They do this through secret rituals and also by showing loyalty in plain sight in front of everybody. Now, make note of this, ladies and gentlemen. If they regularly show the symbolic gestures openly and in plain sight, then they are also practicing an invocation to the deity in plain sight. You see, just making the symbol with their hands is not an empty gesture. It's actually an invocation to their gods. And Donald Trump often postures himself with the inverted pyramid gesture. So we have to ask, if he is an active participant of the craft, he's doing it in plain sight. But is that all there is? No. Donald Trump has exhibited and promoted the inverted pyramid in other areas of his life. So now let's look at Exhibit B, the odd campaign button. When he was campaigning, some of his staff members wore a lapel pin that was very strange looking, because it was an inverted pyramid with the colors purple and gold. At the time, members of the press wondered about it, but they didn't really pursue it. And as a result, the story didn't really get that much traction. But the question needs to be asked, why? Why did their staff members wear such an odd-looking campaign button? And what did it mean? Right here we see President Communications Director, Press Secretary Sean Spicer also wore it. And then we also see Mr. Corey right here who wore it. He was Trump's campaign manager. Well, that was until he got fired, but he also wore it. So as the press was wondering about it, eventually the Trump team came up with a story. And the Secret Service provided that story, or at least they were the excuse. What they said was these pins were just to help them identify the members of the Trump team so that they could know them from the crowd. Now that may sound good, but it doesn't really explain why they continued to wear the pins when they were by themselves. Here we see a picture of Corey Lewandowski visiting a TV station doing an interview, and he's wearing the pin. Did that help the Secret Service to know that he was still a good guy? This does not make sense. Here's another image of him doing an interview, wearing the pin, but they're not in the crowd now. That explanation doesn't really make sense. And what it appears to be is that they're wearing the pin to send a message to those who are watching them. Freemasons and secret orders love to hide things in plain sight. So if this was a symbolic in-your-face effort to display their symbol, What does it mean? The pin appears to resemble the colors of a Grand Master Freemason, which is an office that presides over a Masonic jurisdiction. And the person holding the title is also referred to Most Worshipful Grand Master. Now, there are two ways to obtain this position. The first one is through loyal effort, by working their way up. But the second method is to become a Grand Master by honorary placement. And there's been several presidents in the past who have received the honorary placement of Grand Master, including Franklin D. Roosevelt, Harry S. Truman, and Gerald Ford. And in this image right here, we can see President Truman in his Grand Master apron. He was awarded the honorary office, and he accepted it. We can see that the colors are gold and purple, which coincide with the office. Now, Freemasonry aprons come in a variety of colors, depending on the office. As you can see right here, the purple and the gold does resemble the pin. Here they are next to each other. So what we have so far is circumstantial evidence, but we're building a case. So where are we? We've talked about the inverted pyramid. We've talked about the origins of the inverted triangle and the upright triangle and what they mean. They are sourced from the fertility cult, going all the way back to the kingdom of Babylon, where Satan invented his religions to counterfeit the true religion, to Yahweh, Elohim, God our Father. And the symbols that Satan came up with originate in the anatomy of both the male and female gender. You have the pillars of Baal that represent the male, and then you have the Asherah, the inverted triangle, to represent the female's genital region. Now, we are going to look at the final evidence. And ladies and gentlemen, please continue to finish this video because it's going to come together as an explosion of reality and truth. Now, let's look at Trump Tower. By now, most of the Western world is familiar with it. It was completed in 1983, and it is 664 feet high. That's the official reported height of Trump Tower. And before I move on, I want to emphasize the present age of that tower because it's very interesting in this narrative that we're looking at. And then when we add Donald Trump, who is now the President of the United States, Trump Tower was built in 1983. It's 33 years old. It was completed on November the 30th, 1983, and then it became the home of Donald Trump. Now, if we do the math, it was completed November 30th, 83. Trump was elected president on November the 8th, 2016, and then the Electoral College cast their votes for him on December 19th, 2016. So when the electoral votes were cast for Donald Trump on December 19th, Trump Tower had just had its 33rd birthday. This means the tower was 33 years old when Trump officially became the President of the United States. Now, does this have significance? Is it a coincidence? Well, let's continue and let's find out. Now, officially, Trump Tower has 58 floors, but Donald Trump added an extra 10 floors to the elevator numbers and claims that it has 68 floors. He lives in the top 3 floors in his penthouse, so in the mind of Trump, his penthouse begins on floor 66, which is an interesting number. Now, the purpose of this disclosure is to determine if Donald J. Trump is involved in Freemasonry or some other esoteric dark art or mystical belief. And folks, based on what I'm about to show you, I believe that Trump Tower offers the best evidence. And I'm about to show you why. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the members of their veiled craft will often conceal information in plain sight. And they will use symbols to represent their beliefs. And also, many religions of the occult and paganism will borrow from one another with similar doctrine. And the reason for this is because they all have the same author, also known as Satan the Deceiver. Now, watch this, folks. The Satanic Church's belief of dualism is represented by the transgender Baphomet, which possesses both male and female anatomy. The Freemasons do the same thing with their square and compass, which represents both male and female anatomy. And when we look at the ancient fertility cults of Baal worship, both the male and female anatomy were represented in the pillars, the Asherah and the grove of trees. Now let's look at Trump Tower. From the ground level, most people have not noticed that the tower's anatomy tells a concealed story, because the attention is always at the front gate of Trump Tower, the main entrance, at street level. And when Trump was elected president, a lot of people gathered and took pictures. They wanted to see the famous tower, and the New York Police Department had to set up a perimeter to block bystanders from getting too close, because it had to be declared a security site and turned into a fortress because America's new president lived there. So a lot of people focused on the front door, but they didn't really look up. Most people didn't study what was above them. When the TV cameras were there and the media was there, they didn't really talk about the outside of the building. And that's because from ground level, it's kind of hard to see what's going on above them. Now, folks, watch this. Based on what I'm about to show you, I'll say it right now. Trump Tower represents the dualism of Baal's pillars. It represents the male portion of the anatomy and the inverted triangle of Asherah and the mystical grove of trees. So now, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Exhibit C. This is what the evidence has brought me to conclude. It appears that Trump Tower was built to be a temple, number one, and number two, it was built to be a continual invocation to the spirit world. Let me say that again, folks. Trump Tower was built to be in a constant state of spiritual invocation. And I know that sounds crazy. I know it does, but over the past few years, we've witnessed pagan rituals that celebrated the underworld. We have seen it in previous Olympic ceremonies where they did rituals. We've seen it in Super Bowl halftime shows. We've seen it during the Grammys. We saw it when the shamans opened the portals and when Anubis was paraded across the country, the jackaled god that presides over the city of death. And now we have a president who is a very unique individual. He's very wealthy, and he lets everybody know that. He loves to parade his wealth in shiny things. He loves to show the display of gold and silver and precious stones. And now he's the most powerful man in the world. Now, folks, he did not get there by accident. And I also do not believe that he got there based on a prophecy by a retired fireman. I believe the fireman prophecy is false, and I've talked about that on all the programs. And I believe that I have provided evidence to prove that fireman prophecy is not true. If you want to read more about it, you can go to my website, watchmanscry.com, and you'll be able to find it in there. But Donald Trump is the most powerful man in the world, and he didn't get there by accident. I'm not saying it based on just my opinion. I'm basing it on the evidence of Donald Trump that he has revealed himself. Now, when we look at his penthouse, right here we have pictures of his penthouse. His penthouse is decorated with paintings and artwork that pays homage to the deities of ancient mythology. On his ceiling, he has a painting of Apollo on a chariot being led into the sky by Aurora. He also has Apollo on his mantle. Additionally, we can find other carved images in his penthouse. Here's one of the mythological deities Eros and Psyche. Why does Trump have this? Well, some could say it's just decoration. He's into mythology. He likes the storyline of Apollo and finds it neat. We could say that. Now, before anyone says it's no big deal, I want to remind everyone watching this of the prophecy in the book of Revelation. It's found in chapter 9, and it says, "And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit as the smoke of a great furnace. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power." This is a prophecy of what's going to happen during the tribulation period. At some point in the future, God is going to allow the bottomless pit to be opened. He's going to allow that hatch to be opened so that demon creatures will come to the surface of the earth to lay waste to those under judgment, to those who have rejected God. And then it goes on to say that these demonic creatures have a king over them. Verse 11, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue his name is Apollyon, which is another rendition of Apollo.
In ancient Greece, Apollo was known as the god king and the destroyer. Plato wrote in Cratylus that Apollo should be feared and could only be appeased through sacrifices. In Homer's Iliad, Apollo sends death, destruction, and pestilence to a city for 9 days. Apollo came down furious from the summits of Olympus with his bow and his quiver upon his shoulder, and the arrows rattled on his back with the rage that trembled within him. He sat himself down away from the ships with a face as dark as night, and his silver bow rang death as he shot his arrow in the midst of them. But presently he aimed his shafts at the people themselves, and all day long the pyres of the dead were burning. Ladies and gentlemen, Abaddon the Destroyer is Apollo the Destroyer.
This creature's not human, folks. The principality Apollyon has several renditions, including Apollo. He is the destroyer, and his real name is Satan. Most mythology that has evolved over time is based on the spiritual battle of God versus Satan, or the fall of Satan. And the Hellenistic character of Apollo is one of those. And Donald Trump has him painted on his ceiling. When we look at the end time prophecy of the villain of the tribulation period, the coming little horn, also known as the Antichrist, we can read in Daniel 11:37, it says, "Neither shall he regard the God of his fathers." Donald Trump's father is Presbyterian. But if Donald Trump does practice the dark esoteric arts, which acknowledge underworld entities like Apollo, then this would qualify to fulfilling the verse that we find in Daniel 11:37. Because if Trump's dad was a Presbyterian, but Donald Trump himself worships underworld creatures, then neither shall he regard the God of his fathers would be fulfilled in Donald Trump. And if you're wondering, am I proposing that Donald Trump is the Antichrist? Am I saying that right now? I am not saying he is. I am saying that we need to keep him on the table as one of the candidates. Because what if he is? What if he is, ladies and gentlemen? This topic is about Trump Tower. As I stated earlier, most people at the street level only see what's going on at the street level, but they don't see what's going on above them. So now let's look from an aerial view. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Here is the picture. This is Trump Tower before your eyes. The inverted pyramid that represents the female Asherah is built into his building. It's right there. And we also see above the inverted triangle 7 pillars rising, which represents Baal. So we have the female and the male in Trump Tower. There's another image of it. Count the points at the top of the building. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 points. And now for the grand finale. Let's zoom in on the inverted pyramid. If you're looking at this image, let's count the trees going across. 1, starting from the left, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do you see it? 6 on the top. And then when we count down the right side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the same thing on the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What does this mean? It means that Trump's inverted triangle of Asherah that's on his building in the exterior of his home for the last 33 years represents 666. And it doesn't stop there, folks. Look at this. The fertility cult always places a grove of trees. Trees represent the feminine. And how interesting is it that Trump's inverted pyramid is made up with a grove of trees? And also, when you're looking from afar, the trees appear to look like the private area of a woman's anatomy. It's right there, folks. Some of you are thinking I'm being crude. We're all adults. It is right there. This cannot be denied. Now, is this a coincidence? Did Trump not know what his tower looked like? Of course he did. He designed it. Here's an image of the young Trump standing over his temple. He could put his finger on the triangle, and count the steps. He was proud of it. He had to know about the inverted 666 triangle. It was his design. And also when we look at the upper portion, we can see that the upper portion of the building simulates the rising pillars of Baal. And right here, it's plain to see. You can count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, what does this mean? The pillars of Baal rise up, and the inverted pyramid transcends down into the earth. Now, right here is a 3D image of the tower to make it a little bit easier to see. And here's another view from the top of the tower, from the roof, looking down. And as you can see, we have the 7 points below, and then the pyramid toward the end. This is looking down. So we have the 666 pyramid sitting on 7 mountains. Here's a close-up of the 666 inverted triangle. Now, folks, here it is before our eyes. It's right here. And Donald Trump was either deliberate with the tower's design or it was an accident. But do you think it was? When we take all of the things we've looked at, I believe that Donald Trump was deliberate with the design of the tower, which completely tells the story of Baal's pillars and Asherah's fertility. And I also submit this. Because of this design, the tower has served as an ongoing invocation to the spirit world on Donald Trump's behalf. He did this so that he would be rewarded with earthly riches and power. Now let me take it even further. Trump Tower is a temple to the deities of the underworld, and his penthouse is a temple to Freemasonry. Now let's look at the interior of Manhattan's Freemasonic Lodge. This is from Manhattan's Lodge in his same town. Now look at the chandelier on the ceiling. It's round and there's 2 of them. There's a pair of them, and toward the bottom of the chandelier is a little bulb that extrudes. Now let's look inside of Trump's penthouse. Look at his chandelier. They are similar. Is that all there is? No. Freemasonic lodges will often feature the twin pillars of Jachin and Boaz. That's the name that God gave to Solomon when he built the temple for Israel that was dedicated to him. God told him to place 2 pillars on the outside and name them Jachin and Boaz. And Jachin means he will establish it, and Boaz means by his strength. So together it means by his strength, God will establish it. And often in their Freemasonic lodges, they will place imitations of Jachin and Boaz, the pair, the 2 pillars. Here we see another Freemasonic lodge, and we can see that they have the pillars in pairs. There's several images right here. Now, let's look at Donald Trump's penthouse. The pillars are installed also in pairs. So there you go, folks. The evidence is before you. And I conclude, and I am of the opinion that based on what we have seen, Donald Trump is a cloaked member of Freemasonry. And he did not become the president by accident. Now, a moment ago I mentioned that 3 presidents were given the office of an honorary Grand Master. I am also proposing this. Based on what we have seen, I am led to believe, in my opinion, that Donald Trump was given an honorary placement in the Freemasons. If he is not an active member, he was at minimum given an honorary title. And that is why the pins were placed on his staff. It was to communicate that he was acknowledging it and he was thankful for it. Based on what we have seen right here, it is my opinion that Donald Trump made deals with the elite and with invocations to the dark arts in order to become the president. Now, granted, I could be wrong. I understand that. I could be. And if it's proven that I'm wrong, I'll recant what I'm saying right here. I will repent to what I'm saying right here. But the evidence tells quite a different story. So in conclusion, here's what we have. Trump Tower features the number 666 on an inverted pyramid that is built into his building. We also have that the edifice of Trump Tower exhibits 7 sections that rise like 7 pillars of Baal. We also have that Trump's penthouse is on the 66th floor. We also have that his penthouse has mythological deities on his ceiling. He also has paintings and artwork of the deities. He possesses mythological deities in the form of statues, and his interior replicates the inside of a Grand Lodge. His chandelier resembles what we find in the Grand Lodge, and the pillars inside his penthouse are also in pairs. Now, I could go on and on, but This video is already long enough. I'm going to be continuing this research. You can go to my website at watchmanscry.com. I have an ongoing series called The Trump Chronicles, and you can see the hard copy of this video at my website. In an upcoming installment, we're going to be looking at Donald Trump's coat of arms. I'm going to break it down, and I'm going to show that aside from the Order Out of Chaos eagle that's on one of his coat of arms, there's also other symbolic images that pay homage to deities of mythology and the underworld. So, thank you for watching. Subscribe to this channel. If you appreciate what we're doing, go to my website and send an email and let us know what you think. And with that, take care, folks. Thanks for watching.
Genesis 12:1-3. Now the Lord had said to Abram, Get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. God's foreign policy is pretty simple. If you bless Israel, you will be blessed. If you curse Israel, you will be cursed.
The floor to the representative of the United States.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Jewish people are a patient people. Throughout 3,000 years of civilization, foreign conquest, exile, and return, Jerusalem has remained their spiritual home. For nearly 70 years, the city of Jerusalem has been the capital of the State of Israel, despite many attempts by others to deny that reality. The American people are less patient. In 1948, the United States was the first nation to recognize the independent state of Israel. In 1995, the U.S. Congress declared that Jerusalem should be recognized as the capital of Israel and that the U.S. Embassy should be located in Jerusalem. Presidents Clinton, Bush, and Obama all agreed with that position, but they did not act. They delayed in the hopes that a peace process would produce results that never came. For 22 years, the American people have overwhelmingly supported that position, and they have waited and waited. This week, President Trump finally made the decision to no longer deny the will of the American people. It's important to be clear about exactly what the president's decision does. The president has announced that the United States recognizes the obvious, that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. He has also instructed the State Department to begin the process of relocating the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. That is what the president has done, and this is what he has not done. The United States has not taken a position on boundaries or borders. The specific dimensions of sovereignty over Jerusalem are still to be decided by the Israelis and the Palestinians in negotiations. The United States has not advocated changing any of the arrangements at the Temple Mount Harim al-Sharif. The president specifically called for maintaining the status quo at the holy sites. Finally, and critically, the United States is not predetermining final status issues. We remain committed to achieving a lasting peace agreement. We support a two-state solution if agreed to by the parties. Those are the facts of what was said and done this week. Now there are a few more points that are central to the discussion of this issue. Israel, like all nations, has the right to determine its capital city. Jerusalem is the home of Israel's parliament, president, prime minister, Supreme Court, and many of its ministries. It is simple common sense that foreign embassies be located there. In virtually every country in the world, U.S. embassies are located in the host country's capital city. Israel should be no different. The United States took this step in full knowledge that it will raise questions and concerns. Our actions are intended to help advance the cause of peace. We must recognize that peace is advanced, not set back, when all parties are honest with each other. Our actions reflected an honest assessment of reality. I understand the concern members have in calling this session. Change is hard, but we should never doubt what the truth can do. We should never doubt that when we face the truth, believe in the human spirit, and encourage each other, that peace can happen. To those who have good faith concerns about the future of peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians, let me again assure you that the President and this administration remain committed to the peace process. To those who do not act in good faith, to any person, leader, country, or terrorist group that uses this week's decision as a pretext for violence, you are only showing yourselves to be unfit partners of peace. Finally, I will not let this moment pass without a comment about the United Nations itself. Over many years, the United Nations has outrageously been of the world's foremost centers of hostility towards Israel. The UN has done much more damage to the prospects for Middle East peace than to advance them. We will not be a party to that. The United States no longer stands by when Israel is unfairly attacked in the United Nations. And the United States will not be lectured to by countries that lack any credibility when it comes to treating both Israelis and Palestinians fairly. It is no coincidence that the historic peace agreements between Egypt and Israel and between Jordan and Israel were both signed on the White House lawn. If and when there's a historic peace agreement between Israelis and Palestinians, there's a good likelihood that it too will be signed on the White House lawn. Why is that? It's because the United States has credibility with both sides. Israel will never be, and should never be, bullied into an agreement by the United Nations or by any collection of countries that have proven their disregard for Israel's security. To my Palestinian brothers and sisters, I can tell you with complete confidence that the United States is deeply committed to achieving a peace agreement between the Israelis and the Palestinians. We have demonstrated that commitment over many years and with the investment of large quantities of financial resources and diplomatic energy. Sadly, peace between the two sides has not been achieved, but we will not give up. Our hand remains extended to you. We are more committed to the cause of Israeli-Palestinian peace today than we've ever been before, and we believe we might be closer to that goal than ever before. Both Israelis and Palestinians have very real stories to tell, painful stories of challenges, distrust, and destruction. But this conflict is not just about the past. It must not be about all of those painful stories. It must be about future generations. Palestinian and Israeli children both deserve a future of peace, one no more and no less than the other. When those children are grown, they should look back and look to this time when the parties genuinely negotiated for their sake. These Palestinian and Israeli children deserve to have hope of a brighter and more peaceful future. Our wish and prayer is that this is the time both sides stop thinking about present needs and start thinking about future generations. I urge all countries in the Security Council and in the Middle East to temper their statements and their actions in the days ahead. Peace remains achievable. We must all do our parts to achieve it. Thank you.
Are we about to see Bible prophecy fulfilled? The Bible speaks of a 7-year confirmed covenant with Israel as we read in Daniel 9:27. Then he, the Antichrist, shall confirm a covenant with many, who is Israel, the Palestinians, and possibly other Muslim nations for 1 week, which is 7 years. But in the middle of the week, 3.5 years, he, the Antichrist, shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering, and on the wing of abomination shall be one who makes desolate, even until the consummation which is determined is poured out on the desolate. When the Antichrist confirms a covenant with Israel for 7 years, two things will be made known: the identity of the Antichrist and the 7-year tribulation just started. Are you ready for what comes next? The signs of Jesus' soon return are so strong now, and the evidence is so clear that any person willing to accept the truth can see that the end of the world as we know it is near. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. But God demonstrates his own love toward us, in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. For the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus our Lord. That if you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Time is short. Accept Jesus today.
Thank God many more people are beginning to talk about the fact that Donald Trump is being revealed in these last days to be the rising man of sin, the Antichrist foretold in the Bible, the man who is called the beast in the book of Revelation, the beast who arises out of the sea, the beast who will gather the armies together at Armageddon to make war on the Lord Jesus Christ, the beast who will be cast into the lake of fire with the false prophet. Recently, I've received comments from people telling me about how people are at last starting to talk about the fact that Donald Trump has been planning to fulfill his role in all of this for some 35 years now. As I made a video 1 year ago pointing this out, that Trump is ambitious to fulfill the Antichrist biblical prophecies. Here is just a short clip from that video I made 1 year ago. A photo of Donald Trump taken in 1983 at a time when Trump was, quote, offering his services as a peace negotiator between the Israelis and the Palestinians. So here is Donald Trump, the epitome of worldliness, and no one will deny his lifestyle was totally self-interested, all about his money and his influence and his self-glory. And Trump was hoping to be the peacemaker, the peace negotiator between Israel and the Palestinians. And this was about the same time that Trump was devising his Trump Tower, which is located at 725 Fifth Avenue in New York City. The Trump Tower, that is the headquarters of the Trump Empire, the home of the Trump family, a building that Trump incorporated with the number 666 into its design for all the world to see. This young Donald Trump has the ambition of being the one who makes the peace covenant with Israel and the Palestinians. You know, Donald Trump may not know much about the Bible, but there is an old saying that most people know just enough about the Bible to be dangerous. Everyone knows that 666 is the number of the Antichrist, and anyone who is interested in the Antichrist would also quickly learn that the Antichrist is the person who is prophesied in the Bible to make the covenant with Israel and her neighbors, the Palestinians and other nations. And this has been the ambition of Donald Trump. And Donald Trump has his wall at Mar-a-Lago inscribed with the words plus ultra, the Latin reference to going beyond, going further to complete world power. A close friend of Trump's once said about him, Donald Trump wants it all. You know, with Trump's mother being named Mary and his father being named Fred Christ Trump, Could it be that the worldly Donald Trump, at an early age, began to envision himself as the man of sin in these last days who could fulfill biblical prophecies? A young man who made his deal with the devil to honor the God of fortresses, the God of this world, and to begin to assume the role as the man who would be God, whose number is 666, as explained in my video on the number 666. He built a 666 inverted triangle into his signature building, the Trump Tower, in Manhattan, and he has aspired for 35 years to be the man who makes the peace covenant with Israel and many nations. And his ambition today centers on Jerusalem. Is it not because he knows that he will someday soon fulfill Bible prophecy and seat himself in a rebuilt Jerusalem temple, showing himself to be God? Trump is the man who has read the snake poem repeatedly to the crowds, the man who honors the God of fortresses, the God of this world. Donald Trump's astonishing rise to power was supernaturally foretold as early as 1896 in a book written by the novelist Ingersoll Lockwood. The book was titled The Last President, and it's a story that begins with the United States of America in a state of uproar after the election of an outsider candidate who was fiercely opposed by many people who saw him as a dangerous man. In this book, New York City is the hometown of this newly elected president. And as the novel unfolds, many Americans are rioting on Fifth Avenue in New York City, and they are threatening to destroy a Fifth Avenue building. And get this, the building has the same address as the Trump Tower today. This was years before Trump had built the Trump Tower at that address. Talk about something that could not be coincidence. And as the book continues, many people in the country are fearing the end of the republic as the new president grows in power. And these people believe that the election of this president was the result of a crooked election. And that book, The Last President, was published exactly 50 years before Trump was born.
So we've got people lined up for questions. I just got one more, because you used the word Christian. Have you ever asked God for forgiveness?
That's a tough question. I don't think in terms of, I'm a religious person. Shockingly, because people are so shocked when they find this out, I'm Protestant, I'm Presbyterian. And I go to church and I love God and I love my church. And Norman Vincent Peale, the great Norman Vincent Peale, was my pastor. The Power of Positive Thinking. Everybody's heard of Norman, and I love my church. And Norman Vincent Peale, the great Norman Vincent Peale, was my pastor. The Power of Positive Thinking. Everybody's heard of Norman Vincent Peale. He was so great. He would give a sermon you never wanted to leave. Sometimes we have sermons, and every once in a while we think about leaving a little early, right, even though we're Christian. Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, Frank, would give a sermon. I'm telling you, I still remember his sermons. It was unbelievable. And what he would do is he'd bring real-life situations, modern-day situations, into the sermon. And you could listen to him all day long. When you left the church, you were disappointed that it was over. He was the greatest guy. And then, you know, he passed away, but he was a great... He wrote The Power of Positive Thinking, which is a great book.
But have you ever asked God for forgiveness?
I'm not sure I have. I just go and try and do a better job from there. I don't think so. I think if I do something wrong, I think I just try and make it right. I don't bring God into that picture. I don't. Now, when I take, when we go in church and when I drink my little wine, which is about the only wine I drink, and have my little cracker, I guess that's a form of asking for forgiveness. And I do that as often as possible because I feel cleansed, okay? But, to me, that's important. I do that. But in terms of officially, I could say absolutely, and everybody, I don't think in terms of that. I think in terms of let's go on and let's make.
Breaking news tonight, the Pope in America. A rousing welcome for the man who's been called the rock star Pope. Rock star Pope Francis begins a historic visit.
The Pope, the two leaders will speak to the world, then hold a one-on-one meeting with only translators in the room, all before Pope Francis addresses Congress Thursday with Biden in attendance. Even though the president and the Pope are allies on issues ranging from climate change to income inequality to Cuba, even the Iran nuclear deal, the White House refuses to reveal what the two men will discuss. The White House refuses to reveal what the two men will discuss.
For the faithful who'd been waiting for hours, the emergence of Pope Francis shortly before 9 a.m. was the thrill of a lifetime. Thousands, led by the President and Mrs. Obama, waited to greet him. And after the official welcoming ceremony, both leaders addressed the significance of the visit.
Yet I believe the excitement around your visit, Holy Father, must be attributed not only to your role as Pope.
And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. And he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. And I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration.
We need to remember that we are followers of Jesus Christ. And his life, humanly speaking, ended in failure. Ended in failure. The failure of the cross. The failure of the cross.
A rare moment. Pope Francis alone, praying. He placed a rose atop the etched names of the 3,000 victims of the 9/11 attacks. His goal? Bringing people together. The pontiff chose this place to promote worldwide peace. The Pope joined hundreds of leaders of different faiths to talk about healing. Together, he led a prayer of peace for a violent world.
Peace in the hearts of all men and women, and peace among the nations.
He says he witnessed Pope Francis gracefully combining two contrasting passions in his effort to bring all religions together. To bring all religions together.
Jayang Verang Pasavati
وإليك يرجع السلام.
The words may sound different, but the Pope gathered them into one voice for peace.
Papa Francesco, on behalf of this very distinguished group, representatives of the Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, Sikh, Native American, Jewish, Islamic, and Christian communities of New York City, our civic and public officials, and the board of the September 11th Memorial Foundation, I renew to you our welcome and our joy at your visit. Welcome, Holy Father.
We, representatives of the world religions in this great city of New York, gather to offer words of comfort and
Intolerance and ignorance fueled those who attacked this place. The courage of today's gathering distinguishes us from the opponents of religious freedom as we stand together.
Namo Buddhaya Jayang Verang Pasavati Dukkhang Seti Para.
Homage to the Buddha. Victory begets enmity.
Not
the coat that we wear. That truth is above everything, and the highest deed is truthful living.
Μακάρι η πτωχή το πνεύματι, ότι αυτόν εστίν η βασιλεία των ουρανών.
For they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are the
And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration.
It's awesome to have you around. I'm glad you're addicted to fighting tyranny. Great job. 30 seconds left. Anything else?
Yes, I would like to just end with this note. As far as all the things that have happened while the Pope has been visiting here, the thing that bothered me the most is when he said Christ failed on the cross. And I did a report earlier in the day, people can go and look at while I reference certain scriptures, but Christ didn't fail on the cross. He knew he was going to die on the cross, and he said, I'm giving myself willingly. So I was very disturbed to hear something like that.
He said that? I didn't know that. That was Christ's ultimate triumph.
Yeah, and he said he failed on the cross. There's an ABC News. I'm sure it's on multiple
Sounds like
other
something
news
the
outlets
devil
as well.
would say, Jakari. Thank you.